Hey dudes and dudettes, it's me, your Uncle Herbie E.H. Ivins, and this is another edition of The Dad You Wish You Had. Well, I got a very disturbing little email, and I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to comment on what I would do about it if I were this gentleman, and hopefully as a lesson to all of you. So here it goes. And pardon me for looking down and you looking at the top of my gray hair, but I got to read it. Very sad. I got rid of the dear, Herbie, and I'm not going to mention this man's name at all. I'm just going to read the question. It's not really a question, but what he's looking for. Very sad and angry. The joy of my son's bar mitzvah was taken away from me by my ex-wife and her latest sugar daddy boyfriend. When I went to the temple, I see these posted on the bulletin board and on the temple's website. Guys, I'm reading this. I should have bleeped that out. Anyway. Let's call it the female dog. Okay, I'm outraged and don't know what to do about it. I've already won full custody of my daughter because of the physical and emotional abuse and parental alienation of my ex perpetrated against my daughter. I have a great relationship with my two boys, and I say this because I want everyone to know that I'm not a deadbeat father who may deserve such treatment. Any suggestions are most welcome. Okay, first of all, for those of you who are not familiar with what a bar mitzvah is, when a Jewish boy turns 13, it's much like a confirmation in Christianity. When a Jewish boy turns, or girl, because that's called a bat mitzvah. The bar mitzvah is boy, the bat mitzvah is girl. Not to really confuse you, the Orthodox Jews, who are the most religious Jews, don't do bat mitzvahs because they don't believe in this for women, but the Reform and conservative Jews, in other words, to use an analogy, the Unitarians and Episcopals of Judaism, they do. They go with girls. So anyway, to make a long story short, that's what a bar mitzvah is. For those of you who don't know a lot of Jewish people, I'm probably being needlessly detailed. Anyway, you can see this guy is suffering a lot of pain. Now, here's what I got from this little missive. Number one is he has custody of his daughter, and I guess he's sharing custody of his sons. That's interesting. I'd like to know more about that. But I tried to find out, and he didn't respond. So I'm not going to surmise what the case might be there, or what the physical or emotional abuse was, or why the courts allowed the daughter to be with him and allowed the sons to be in joint custody. There's got to be a lot more to this story than meets the eye, and that's the problem when I get questions like this, is that there are always two sides to every coin, and certainly the mom has her own point of view. So in this situation, when this all boils down, when you take all the emotion out of it and the bad words and calling your ex, first of all, as I alluded to in my earlier podcast about having a happy divorce, you got to get rid of calling your ex-wife names. That's not going to go well, okay? And I can see clearly that in this man's case, he is forcing the children to take sides, if for nothing else, by his energy. Even if you don't say things, oops, I just knocked the light. Even if you don't say things like that to or in front of your children, they pick up on your energy. Children are little energy sponges, little emotion sponges. You have got to find a way to get along with your ex and her sugar daddy boyfriend. You got to get rid of things like that, sugar daddy boyfriend. Does this mean that this man makes more money than you do and so you resent him, or is she a cupcake? Did you marry a cupcake and she's only going with him for his money? I mean, or is it any of your business? Let's ask ourselves this question. Once you're divorced, who your ex dates, male or female, why is that any of your business or concern, so long as it doesn't interfere with your own children? Your son knows who his father is. No matter what's up on that bulletin board at the temple, no matter how it was worded, and clearly, if it's up on the bulletin board at the temple, it makes me feel like she's paying for the bar mitzvah. And I mean, there are a lot of details here that are missing, and that's the problem with things like this. When people get full of hate, and get full of rage, and get full of bitterness, they just can't see rationality. So in answer to this entire missive, my answer would be relax, let it go by, go to the bar mitzvah, be a big man about it, hug your ex-wife, don't say anything about, bad about her, and move on. Because the day after the bar mitzvah, you're going to be in the same position you were in the day before. You're still going to have custody of your daughter and shared custody of your sons. She's still going to be their mother. You're still going to have to know her for the rest of your life, because at every bar mitzvah of their children, and every Hanukkah and every Passover and every family get-together forever, you're going to have to see your ex-wife because you share three beautiful children. So get over it. Don't force your children to make a choice. They will pick the parent that they view as the underdog. You picking on your ex-wife and calling her names like bitch, female dog, is a mistake, because all you're doing is poisoning your own relationship with your own son later. And this brings me to a broader point I'd like to make in regards to this, And that's about bitterness, okay? You get my drift on this. I don't buy into his point of view, and I don't buy into her point of view. I know there are two sides to this story. You can read between the lines of that missive and see it right away. And we don't know the history, and we can't have an opinion, not an informed opinion, from that little paragraph. So, my advice is go to the bar mitzvah, enjoy yourself, dance the hora, eat a lot of food, and try to remember that that's the mother of your children, and you used to sleep with her. Okay, just try to remember that when you're spewing invective. And as far as the boyfriend's concerned, as long as he's good to your ex-wife and children, what do you care? And if he isn't, again, it's none of your business. Keep your nose out of it. He is not your boyfriend. He's her boyfriend. Okay, let me leave it alone and get to the point I want to make about bitterness. I am a divorced man, and by the way, who adores his ex-wife. Now, when I say I adore my ex-wife, I'm not romantically in love with her. I have no desire to remarry my ex-wife. I have a lot of friends, by the way, who often say to me, when are you going to remarry Terry? And my answer is A, she's already married to somebody else that, by the way, I fixed her up with, which I know is weird, but it's true. And second, so that's not going to happen. And secondly, even if she were single, even if God forbid John, who's her husband, who I really like and has been great to my kids, so I have nothing bad to say about him. But even if God forbid John died, I wouldn't remarry Terry. Not because I don't love her, because I do love her. I love her, A, as the mother of my children, and B, as one of the finest human beings I've ever met who really understands and gets me. And it's a wonderful feeling to have people in the world who understand and get you. And to turn on them just because your marriage didn't work out doesn't make any sense to me at all. But anyway, that means that I'm dating. Okay, I'm going to bring this. I'm going to somehow turn this entire missive into how to live your life without all this bitterness. Okay, so as a person dating, I obviously, well, not obviously, but in my case, I would share with you that I'm straight. So I date women. Okay, so in the women I date, and I think this advice would apply if you were gay and dating same sex. I purposely avoid anybody who I view as bitter. Now, there's a difference between anger and bitterness. There's a very big difference. You can be mad at somebody, but mad is something you get over. So when you're going through a divorce or a breakup or any other traumatic personal situation, it's perfectly all right to get mad. Mad is an honest emotion. Mad is something you should not bottle up. If you're mad, you should let it go. Get it out on the table. And if you're having an argument between you and the person that you love, by all means, my advice is don't go to bed without resolving it, okay? Don't let it fester in your mind. Come to some resolution if you possibly can, even if it means staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning. But when you get to these big things like divorce, then what happens to anger in too many cases is it morphs into bitterness. And the difference between anger and bitterness is you get over being angry, but you never get over being bitter. Once you become bitter, there is literally no path back. None. I'd like to say there is, but there isn't. You know enough bitter people in your own life to know that everyone that you know who's become bitter is always bitter. And they just can't stay away from it. And they share their bitterness with anybody who will listen to it. So when I go out, for example, with a new woman, and we're on our first date, I'm listening. And what I'm listening for most of all is bitterness. I'm looking to see how much she hates her ex-husband. Now, I have to be honest with you. When I date women my own age, I tend to want to gravitate towards widows. Why? Because when a husband dies, he doesn't leave his wife bitter, and they're much more fun to date, to be perfectly honest. I don't mind being compared to someone she loves. You know, if you're going to date somebody and get to a second marriage, you're inevitably, you can't tell her to stop mentioning her late husband or her ex-husband. That's ridiculous. I mean, that was a big part of her life, just like you have your past too. The difference is not to dwell on it, okay, all day long. I don't have problems as long as she's not bitter. If she wants to, well, my ex-husband John used to like to, putter around the house, and you can't fix a darn thing, which is true in my case. I can't fix a darn thing. I just thought this, the reason I got quiet there for a second, I was just thinking back. The other day, I'm just digressing quickly. I was out looking at RVs. I'm kind of thinking about going on the road for a period of time and traveling around the country, and I was looking at RVs. And in looking at the RVs, I've settled on I'm going to get an Airstream. Why am I going to get an Airstream? Because they're the only RVs mass-produced that are built well, and I can't fix anything, so I can't take the chance of buying a cheaper model that's going to rattle and come apart with cheap, plywood framing and stuff like that. I got to spend the big bucks for the big thing because I can't fix it. And and I wish I could. I envy men that can. Anyway, that's just a digression. But you got to be honest. So, like in that example, if I dated a woman who's late husband was very, very handy and, built a room onto their house, remodeled the bath and all that, I'd be the first to tell her, look, if that's important to you, you're not going to like me. Because, what do I do if the sink's clogged? I call the plumber. I'll be honest with you. I don't snake. It's not that I don't know how to do it. I don't want to do it. And even if I know how to do it, I'm going to mess it up. For example, I had a leaky shower one day and I thought I'd do it myself, and I went to Ace Hardware and they were very, very nice, and they told me, about, the cartridge, which I didn't even know existed, and they gave me a set, they lent me, this is how great Ace Hardware was. By the way, I have no relationship with Ace Hardware. They lent me a set of sockets to take out they told me how to do everything. I went home, I couldn't do it. Literally, the Ace salesman came over to my house and changed the cartridge for me, and that's how non-handy I am. So if that would be important to somebody, obviously she shouldn't date me. But what I'm listening for the whole time, I don't care whether a woman can clean or not. I don't care whether a woman cooks or not. I don't care if she's tall or short. I don't care what race she is. I don't care about her religion as long as she doesn't try to share it with me. I don't care about any of those things. I care about bitterness, because who wants to bathe in that for the rest of their lives? Who wants to listen to all the ways that this person has been wronged? And that's what bitterness is, a litany of how they've been a victim of everybody else but their own decisions. And the fact of the matter is, if you had a bad marriage, you chose who you married, and you were a party to how it broke up, and you are just as responsible as the other party, if not more so, depending on what the story is. And bitterness is something you don't, male or female. This man, in this question he wrote me today, was sliding into bitterness, and you've got to stop. And I don't have a magic pill for that other than I always find that my thoughts follow my behavior. So my best suggestion is to force yourself to be nice to your ex. Force yourself to be polite. Force yourself to hug her when you see her, or hug him if I'm talking to women who are bitter about their men. Force yourself, and the rest will, I hope, come in time. I've never had to force myself. I don't know. This may be unfixable, because certainly once you become bitter, there's no going back. Okay, I've beaten that horse enough, and I've answered the question for today. Anyway, before I go, a couple of things. First of all, I'm a novelist, and I've written a wonderful novel called The Terrarium, which is a coming-of-age story set in the Northeast in the 1960s. And I picked the 1960s because it was a time of great social change, much like our own times are now. Very, very similar. And I think you'll love the story. Pick it up if you will. It's on Amazon. You can download it onto your electronic reader. You can get a hard paperback copy, or if you're a Prime member, can download it from the Kindle Lending Library and read it. No matter how you get it, it will pay me a small amount of money, which helps support this podcast, which I hope you want to do, and spread the word. That brings me to my next point, which is, obviously, because we're just beginning, please subscribe, and most importantly, and click the notification button, share this. Because in the algorithm, and as the YouTube search engine, YouTube is a search engine, we won't get picked up till we have 40 some odd episodes, 45 or more. And we're now, I think, 16 or 17 with this one. I forget the exact count. But anyway, the bottom line is we're far from it. So the only way people are going to find us, or find this podcast, I should say, is if you share it. So please share this with your friends if you like the advice I'm giving here on the dad you wish you had. And that's all I have for today. I want to thank you very, very much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Don't forget to text me your questions to my other dad at 844-935-0444. And until next time, this is your Uncle Herbie, E.H. Ivins, saying so long.